their soul.
Hello my beautiful ladies and gentlemen, and today we're going to be discussing a game that was once called the COD Zombie Killer. We're going to be discussing its rise and fall, both from its release and just exactly how it got to the situation it's in today. So without further ado, this is what happened to the COD Zombie Killer. I believe in order to explain its downfall, you of course have to start with its beginning and why it was so popular in the first place. Well, I believe Sker Ritual was very much a situationship baby. And the reason I say that is because, of course, this game is relying heavily on the fan base of Call of Duty Zombies, which of course, Call of Duty was in a horrible state when this game was released. With MW3 being its main present game, fans were very much not pleased with that current game, and they were starving for round-based content. This leading a lot of fans to jump the gun and just call it a COD Zombie Killer. So naturally a lot of YouTubers wanted to jump on that, and it received a lot of coverage from many YouTubers, you know, your classic Noah J456, Mr. Dalek JD, Mr. Raffle Waffles, a whole lot of Mistas. The views were great on YouTube, and even Vanoss Gaming made a video on it. It seemed that Sker Ritual was everywhere for a couple weeks and it just couldn't be stopped. With the numbers on Steam being quite strong at 5,992 for an indie developer, that was quite well. But somehow, less than a month later, it had already dropped to 2,702. Well on its way to being half of the player base that it had just a month prior. With all these factors combined, and such a big push from influencers, it seemed like Sker Ritual was destined to win. And this led me to the question, just why was this drop just so drastic? And what could have Sker Ritual done differently to prevent it? When it comes to Sker Ritual's downfall, I believe there's multiple things that you can point the finger at. With one of the first things being just the very slim amount of updates it received, especially right after launch, one of the most key points in a game's life. Within the first few months, only small optimizations were added in just a few weapons. It would be nearly 2 months into the game's lifecycle before it seen a major update. This of course adding its first map, House of the Damned, with it bringing along a few new perks, a new wonder weapon, and a few other small things with the map. However, it seemed that this was just far too late and they had simply waited too long to release new content, as by this point, Steam numbers had already dropped to 769 players. And the bad news would only continue to roll in for Sker Ritual, with the following month of August nearly halving again with the player base going down to 363, showing that this map did very little to anything to actually bring back any players. With actually quite interestingly, Sker Ritual seen a small bounce back of players in the same month Black Ops 6 was released. This making me come to the same conclusion that ironically the game that Sker Ritual was supposed to kill actually gave it a boost and a little bit more popularity in the end. With Call of Duty rising from 80,597 players on October 14th to just a little over a week later in the same launch week of Black Ops 6, seeing almost 315,000 players. And while Sker Ritual also shared that same amount of rise, it was nowhere near the same, only climbing up to 509, with Sker Ritual never seeing over 200 concurrent players since. So to sum up this main argument, my main point in what I've seen in my research is ultimately Sker Ritual just couldn't release content fast enough to keep up with the ultimate demand of the fan base. And while they ultimately picked up content later in the year, it seemed like it just wasn't enough to bring back the falling player base. I have hope for Sker Ritual. I really do like the game and I really want to see it flourish. Honestly speaking, it doesn't look too good, with it only sitting at 72 players this month in April. But with that being said, what now for Sker Ritual? What would ultimately be their best move? What have they officially announced? And what do I personally think would be best for them to do? As far as the officially announced news, there's not very much to report on. They've officially announced a PS4 and an Xbox One port. They've also announced optimization and engine overhauls, which are all great, but simply I don't believe that's enough to bring the player base back. They have also announced some type of special birthday event upcoming for Sker Ritual. While they haven't announced anything at the time of recording this video, that is a good transition to my next segment. Just what I think Sker Ritual could be doing to help improve their game and potentially bring back some of those players that they had originally. And as I just stated, I think adding a lot more content to the game, such as community updates, community rewards, progressing their weapon system, adding more like upgrades to their perks and things of that sort. Just being a lot more consistent on that content. And while I do think the game is a bit clunky and it really does need this optimization and needs a lot of the improvements that they are bringing to the game, it just simply isn't enough to save this dying game. And as I believe the evidence has shown, the only thing that will is more consistent, diverse, and in-depth game content. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to me yap for a few minutes. I really do appreciate you that have come to watch this, especially since it's on my side channel. But if you're watching this and you haven't seen my main channel, go ahead and take a gander over there at chansey.youtube/.com, something like that. Take a little mosey over there. I promise it'll be worth your time. And of course, subscribe or be banned from life.